All right. With that being said, if I don't know how much of that transferred into live, I want to say hello and how's everybody doing to the people that will show up in chat later on, and also happy Mother's Day for all those who are mothers. Or if you
Or
don't, I'm not a mom. Go be nice to your mom, or go be nice to your grandma, or that weird lady across the street that's spent more time with you than your own mom because that was your babysitter. Whoever that might be, go spend some time with her today. God bless it, my phone's going off. Today we're going to be talking about the 1960 Magnificent Seven. We're not talking about the 2016. No, no, no. We're not talking about the TV series from the 90s. We're talking about the
oh,
1960s.
serious?
What?
See, serious? There was a TV series
Oh yeah.
that's retarded.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
how do you? That was
no,
my head is
this,
exploding.
this is what we're going to talk about. Why? Because thematically, it's so good. How can we make this into a game? How can we use these themes in our tabletop? Because the theme is so good that it's easily adapted to a TV show, to a sequel, to a sci-fi movie. Battle Beyond the Stars. Um, it's universal, and that's what we want to talk about, right?
I want to talk about
I guess.
Firefly. I mean, but we could talk about this too.
No,
Uh,
we're
I
talking
just watched Battle Beyond the Stars and I did not catch that reference. But then again, I fell asleep halfway through it.
Oh, come on.
So-
It's the one person looking for others to join him against a great battle. It's like classic literature, no matter what you do. No, I know.
and Robert
I-
Englund plays the same character in both movies. He plays the same character in Battle Beyond the Stars as he plays
I'll
in
have
the
to go watch
Magnificent
it again.
Seven.
It's on
It's
YouTube.
amazing.
Maybe I fell asleep way sooner than that.
after I got done watching this one, I'm thinking this was a really good movie. I'm Steve McQueen. Oh my god! I mean, I'm not anywhere near that direction of thought process, but I was thinking to myself, he is a handsome man. I
And a
don't
main man.
know.
If you watch his scenes, pardon me, if you watch any scene in the Magnificent Seven that Steve McQueen is in, he does things to draw attention away from the other actors to him. He'll fan his hat. He'll scratch his head. He's doing things that he's intentionally to draw attention from the center to him because that's the kind of actor and person that he was. Brilliant actor and knew his craft and used it to draw attention to himself.
Well, and Yul Brynner, and when Steve McQueen would do that, Yul Brynner said, "All I have to do is take off my hat, and you just disappear." That was because Steve McQueen was intentionally doing that to draw attention away from Yul Brynner.
Right.
And Yul Brynner, to be fair, Yul Brynner has such a great stage presence. I mean, not just this one, but also in Westworld.
Yeah.
As soon as he takes off that hat, everyone else kind of disappears unless you're. That's a great thing about Yul Brynner. Yul Brynner wasn't even that big of a man. When you start looking at him, but even in Westworld, he has that stature about him that makes him seem a lot bigger than he is.
I mean, it had Charles Bronson in it, who, once again, another actor you can't go wrong with in older movies. The one that threw me off, honestly, the actor that threw me off, there was two that threw me off that I actually had to look at hard because I'm like, that guy sounds familiar, he looks familiar, but he's young.
James Coburn?
Yeah.
He was the one I kept thinking was Lee Marvin.
No,
I don't know why.
No, not Lee Marvin, James Coburn.
No, I thought he was, but
Right.
it was 40 years ago last time I saw this.
I'm like, I just recently saw that guy like in a movie, a Payback with the Mel Gibson movie.
Yeah.
He's an old gentleman, and I'm like seeing the young version of him. Like, it's not even one of those damn what happened. He's like he aged well. Good for him.
Well, The Man Called Flint, I think, was in the late '60s, early '70s. He also wasn't. He was in a few others. Yeah. But yeah, when he got older, he made sure he got the beard, so he looks different, rather than trying to keep that.
He kind of remind me. What was those beards called? Desinkes or whatever. The most interesting man in the world.
Oh, right.
Doseki beer.
Yeah, he kind of gives me that vibe, you know. I'm sure I don't want to speak ill of the dead and if can't see he is because yeah, he died in 2002. But no, he was just damn, just but every I can't really complain about any actor that I know in this show. Although I think there's a couple of the characters I can complain about, but the actors all did a great job. Speaking of characters, I kind of well, there's five of us because Mark can't be here. So I'm hoping we all don't pile on to the same character. I don't think we will, but I'm gonna start with Shadow. Who was your favorite character?
Honestly, I don't have one. I literally I've been racking my brains. If you took anything out of this movie, um, it would have, I mean, obviously we wouldn't have known. But
Yeah.
if you were to go back, and say, okay, we're now gonna delete this guy. We're canceling this particular actor from the movie. I know how would you do that? But I can't think of a single one that I don't know. You know, I can identify, with each and every one of them except one character. Well, and the bad guy, of course. Throughout different periods of my life, because I'm an old fart. I've done things similar to each one of those guys at one point or another. And I don't mean like shooting people, but I mean different phases of my life. From Chico all the way up. And I just don't have one. I really can't think of one that made it more than the other. I know they were trying to put Yule up in the front, but there were times where other people shone just as much as he did.
All right, I'll give you that. Weirdly enough, that is somewhat of a hard question for this movie, and I do understand that because I've been racking my brains on for the last 2 weeks. Okay, which character did I really like over the next? What about you, Bo?
I liked Steve McQueen's character for the one-liners, but the one that I think I related to the most, believe it or not, was the Lucky Harry when he's trying to get the money from the Mexicans, and trying to find his motivation to fight. And he's Yul Brynner's character Chris says to him, "It's only $20," and he says, "Well, every dollar to me is as big as a saddle blanket." And then he's at the village and he's standing around and he's saying, "Where's the gold mine? Where's the gold mine? Oh no, never mind. It was a silver mine, wasn't it?" And I think about the games that I've played over the years and the characters that I've tried to play over the years. And I think about how much fun it would be to play the guy they're all expert gunmen with the exception of Chico, right? They're all got reputations and they've got skill. And this is the guy, I don't know if he's deluding himself, if he knows that there's really no money in it, or if he's just that far down on his luck. But it seems every time I see a scene with that character in it, I smile.
I get that. I do get that. Omen?
The old man.
Oh, yeah.
I
was
love
gonna
the
say
old
him.
man. I mean, now, to be fair, when I was a kid, just going through this, whenever I make a character, I used to pick one of the characters from Magnificent Seven just to say, okay, I want to be this kind of character, or I want to be this kind of character. But the old man, I just love his, the whole thing of, he says, well, at my age, I could deal with a little excitement. He has the wisdom, he has the good sense of humor. He really likes the fact that they're showing some of the weaknesses in there. When they ring the bell, and he's kind of smiling and laughing as they all run out. I just liked him a lot. That was one of my favorite characters. Now, to be fair, I love the Magnificent Seven. I'm sorry, the Seven Samurai. So I can identify which characters are in there. I think the Seven Samurai, if it was, of course it's subtitled, but I still love it. I love this film. to me, there couldn't have the fact of the way that they did such a good job. Yeah, but I mean, I like Chris. I like but a lot of them are relatable. The funny thing is, Harry's the only one that I don't relate too well to. I like the Robert Vaughn character who's lost his nerve. That was the whole thing. He only shoots at the very end. And then I also like the whole thing with what was it, Bernardo O'Reilly? Half
Right.
Mexican, half Irish, and me in the middle. And when he's chopping wood, that's something that they mention in the Seven Samurai, where he finds someone. It's but it's a great
You
cast.
missed Tico. What the hell?
You know what? He's a young guy, but I do like the whole thing. And we're going to go off about this, but let's not forget how good paced the movie is. It starts off with some good banter. They have a gunfighting scene at the beginning, and then it slows down. I'll be honest. Sometimes I just love Eli Wallach too. Even the villain is fun to watch, and I think that makes a big difference too. It's every character you kind of glue your eyes to for a lot of them, any of the main characters.
I had to when he first came up. It was like the main bad guy. I'm like, I'm listening to him talk because I'm like making a salad at this juncture because I'm like listening and popping my head in and listening. Because I always watch normally if it's something we're going to be talking about, I'll watch it twice. So I make sure I get everything. So I'm listening to it the first time around. I'm like, I know that voice. Why do I know that voice?
It's Tuco from.
And then I stuck my head in. I'm like, fuck, that's the guy from Good, Bad, the Ugly, A Few Dollars More, and yeah, that guy. I'm like, huh, good for him.
But I love that whole thing when he talks about it, and I love the way he plays off as the bad guy. He's still charismatic. A lot of times they just make him. Well, you don't like the bad guy, but I actually like watching. Every time he's on the screen, I want to watch more of him. He steals that.
Yeah, a charismatic bad guy goes a long way, and intelligent. If he's both intelligent and charismatic, it goes even further, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What about you, Jack?
My favorite character, I don't remember his name. I just called him Mustache Man, but the guy who hired them.
Well, all of them had a mustache.
Oh,
I know, but I'm very well aware of that.
He was one.
Hilario.
Yeah.
But was he the one? Which was the one that was he the one that said, "Don't shoot, just pick up the gun and use it as a club"?
Mm-hmm. I don't think he said that.
No, he's talking when the
he was talking about him.
Yeah,
he was talking about the beginning of the movie when the three Mexican gentlemen went up to go buy guns. And they came. He was one of those three guys. He actually
they referred to him as the leader.
Yeah, the leader. Though
the previous leader guy is the one who surrendered the town and he should have been shot or run out of town.
Well, yeah, it's time for new leadership. My favorite character had to be Charles Brunson's character.
Bernardo O'Reilly?
Yeah. There's a line that he makes. He's like, well, I'm half Irish, half Mexican, and,
and me
in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Growing up, I'm half Irish, half Romanian. And it was just, I could symbolize that. And just his overall personality, I enjoyed. He's the one who came in. Was it? Yeah, it was him. When they were all eating, they're all eating well. He's like,
because they're starving.
What? Yeah, why the kids are starving. I'm not saying anybody can go shoot a gun, but when you're looking after other people that you're not paid to do, that to me, that right there is a good man. And
I think they all were less bad than we're supposed to.
I don't think any of them were bad guys. I mean, even James was
actually. I think one of them was.
You think one of them was a bad guy?
Yeah, I think Robert Vaughn Lee's character Lee was probably the fact that he was on the run and hiding out and everything else. I think of all of them, even though I really liked that character, I think he was possibly the one of them that might have,
I
done
think when
some things
you're
that were.
when you're a hired gun in a situation like that, all you have to do to be the bad guy is be on the losing side of the fight.
I'm
Just
going to be a little bit
certainly.
different. I think Robert Vaughn was that way. It's because, like you say, he was on the run. This was his chance at redemption because he really didn't care too much about the money. It was just enough to pay this off. This was his chance to kind of decompress and
Right.
get away from certain things.
He had that sort of gentlemanly quality about him, and he seemed like he realized that, this is a good way to go out.
Was this movie based? I didn't really get the timeline, and that's probably my bad. I really didn't get the timeline on this movie. Is this post Civil War, before Civil War?
It'd be post Civil War because they're talking about Dodge City and everything beginning to
Yeah, it has to be
civilized.
Civil War.
They also have
Guns that they're using.
revolvers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Cap revolvers would have been around 1880s. Plus, you get a feeling that it's the end of the era, so it probably would have been post Intercontinental Railroad.
Yeah,
the Old West is sort of just drying up, and there's no work with them anymore. They've gone civilized.
Yeah, I think they even said something like that at the beginning of the movie because there's less work for them.
With being a hired gun, in every cowboy book I've ever read or movie, when it comes to gunslinger, after a while they all get names for themselves. Well, this guy is known to take out this guy, and there's always some new kid on the line waiting to make his bones off somebody else's back. Somebody else's body in this particular.
Okay, so the Johnson County War, which is something they referenced, was 1892.
That's Billy the Kid. That's Billy the Kid.
No, that's Lincoln County Range War.
No, yeah, you're right. That's Lincoln.
No, the Johnson County War was basically cattlemen hired a bunch of people to move off settlers, and the settlers fought back. So the Johnson, but remember he references it. He says, "Well, they said that you got paid $800 for that one." So the Johnson. So we're talking 1890s,
right?
Early 1900s.
I guess what I'm saying about the gentleman shooter is he is probably a vet from the Civil War, in theory.
Probably most of them would have been the right age to have been vets of the Civil War.
And I don't know. I'm not. I don't know.
No, they wouldn't have been able to be veterans.
I think most of them were little. If they were really, really young at the time.
Yeah, they were
30 years earlier. I don't know. I got the impression that at least Yul Brynner's character might have been 50.
Yeah, well, Yul Brynner would have probably been the only one, but he may not have actually fought before.
Yeah, Civil War. The Civil War kids were being.
That's weird because I remember in the sequel, the same character Chris, even though played by a different actor, was like 34. So that would not have given him the opportunity, and. It was like, what? Wait, 34? He looks like clearly he looks like he's, more like 54, but they said he was 34, and I'm like, damn, the Old West was hard on the old complexion now, wasn't it?
I'm thinking of something else is beyond the point when it comes to that. I'm just thinking, people died, 50s and 60s? I mean, very few people died of old age.
If they were lucky.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what amazes me is I think 25% of all people, if they made it to 18, made it up to like 75. Right. It was they didn't. People talk about how short the lifespan was, but that was mostly the kids were dying.
Right.
And then once you made it, it's a lot less.
Yeah.
Well, just take into consideration when you figure the average age of average mortality rate of a population.
Yeah. But once you leave out kids, then it drops to more normalized.
Was there anybody with the characters that you're like, I don't really like that guy. I'm still going to root for him, but he just wasn't. The film would have been better off without him, because I at least have one in my head.
I have a character that I don't particularly like. I have a few, but I do think that they were necessary.
All right, so none of you guys really have an. Shadow, do you think this movie would? if they would have done the character different, or something would have been better, or you happy?
Harry Locke's character could have used a little bit more to endear him to the audience. The fact that he left, but came back, kind of that whole Han Solo kind of thing. At first, I mean, I knew he was coming back, but it just, if that was me and I'm like, man, I want to get out of here, but I noticed I'm the only one leaving, I'm not leaving. You know what I mean? At the bare minimum. I get it. There has to be that one guy who's kind of like that, really only in it for the money, or, thinking that this is stupid and we're all going to die. And he wasn't wrong. Very few people survived, but
You don't hire a gunman for their morals.
I get it, but especially after the town said, you know what, we'll just go back to being victims. I could see, well, okay, fine, you guys screwed us over and almost got us killed when we helped train you and get to know you and all this, and we're doing this for for the right reasons, not really the money, and this is how you thank us. I can see kind of being angry about it and thinking about leaving, but then actually leaving your bros, I couldn't do it, so it would have been nicer to see something about him, like with Han Solo. He left, but he came back, but you knew he was going to come back, but you got to know that kind of a character a little bit more, and that's about all it was missing.
Okay.
True, because he was the first guy to join up, I'm pretty sure. And if he wasn't the first, he was the second.
He forced himself into it. Because even Chris is like, I don't think this is a job for you. And he just kept showing up.
You're a high stepper. What's a high stepper like you doing? Yeah.
Right. He was glad to have you, but why are you here? Kind of.
There was a person that was your typical mercenary. I'll work for anyone for any amount of money, that kind of thing. And
all right, what about you, Bo? Was there anybody that you?
I think the movie was. I couldn't imagine the movie with one fewer character. Because you're dealing with multiple motivations and multiple arcs. And I know that also because I know that it's based on the Seven Samurai, it would be hard to cut out characters and keep it. If anything, I don't like the changes that they made to the motivation with the seventh guy, Chico, compared to how he was in the Seven Samurai. The crazy pretender with the giant sword. I actually found him the least relatable to me. I mean, he's got this kid who wants to be a gunman, but then he ends up staying in the village. He realizes that being the gunman is not for him. I wouldn't say, again, I wouldn't cut it out. I just found it was the weakest part of the movie.
You know what though, is I found that he was necessary to bring the relatability to them. Is like, okay, this is where a lot of them were at the start of their career. That's where you needed. Whereas if I'm compared to the Magnificent Seven, of course he died. I'm sorry, the Seven Samurai. In the Seven Samurai, he dies.
Right.
So there's that aspect, and of course you want a little bit happier ending. But the other part was,
I'm a sucker for a happy ending, and as soon as I saw her, I'm like, hell yeah.
Well, the Seven Samurai has no romance in it.
Exactly. There's no girls in it, dude. Well, I guess there's the one.
And so they had that, and then the other part, of course, is the they keep referencing him as the and it's his land and things like that. So it was showing that, from my standpoint, it's like, oh, okay, he's a pretender, but he's because he doesn't want to go through this normal farm life. And after this, he realizes, you know what, farm life is probably the better way to go.
Yeah, and think about it. He would be pretty damn popular in that town for the rest of his life. he may not be the leader, maybe someday he would grow up and be that guy. But I mean, he would definitely be one of the most popular people in town.
Yeah,
And
I agree with that.
No,
Bo?
he tends to have more. Well, and then from my standpoint is, I can't really think of any characters I would remove just because it was a well written script. That's the thing is, even characters I don't like, which was I can't remember the one that James Coburn killed. At the very beginning. I'm like, yeah, but that was necessary just to show the type of man he is.
Right.
He just wanted to be left alone.
Well, he wanted to test things, and then he's like, "You don't want to do this." And to be fair, it's like Bo and I have watched the Seven Samurai. It's very similar. Okay, we're doing this to show who would win, and then the guy gets mad and says, "Well, I'll do it for real." It's like you don't want to do this, and he gets forced into that. But you also the guy always is trying to be the best. And no, I like all of the characters. I mean, Harry's my least favorite character, but I wouldn't remove anyone because to remove something would either means that you're removing dialogue that's good to listen to,
Right.
or it sets a different tone. I mean, even at the beginning, you don't really even hear the main characters. At the beginning, you have the two guys. You have the Undertaker and the corset salesman.
Right.
Bing Russell, father of one Kurt Russell.
Yep.
Oh, that was the Undertaker?
No, that was the guy who sold corsets.
Oh, okay.
What about you, Jack?
I don't think I'd remove anything.
Okay. I agree with most of you guys. I don't think I'd remove anybody, but I would definitely retool Chico's character a little bit. Make him a little bit a little bit more mature, a little bit more. I mean, I love the fact that he was able to. I love the fact that he was able to sneak in, had the gravitas to sneak into the enemy's camp and to figure out what's going on. He definitely had his moments, but his personality, I just wanted to tell him to go the hell up the entire.
We got to remember. Not only was this filmed in 1960, okay, even before I was born, if you can believe that. But it was about
really
a time
I
even
you saw
before
this movie
that.
during high school.
I did see this movie. Well, I saw it during high school, but not in the theaters. Not in the theaters, smartass. I can actually picture, the character being exactly like that. I mean, when we first meet him, he's drunk off his ass, more or less, or when he's, when he falls down in the bar, when you're young,
met him though.
When you're young and uneducated, and you grow up idolizing these people, I can totally see that, especially being prideful enough to have left his home, because he wanted to be like these guys and not as he called it, a dirt farmer or what have you. Most of these guys were probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's I don't know if what's his name, Horst Borchold, played it that hammy on purpose, or if he was trying to ham it up to play that naivete. But sometimes he was so hammy it was kind of hard to watch. But just really, this emotion coming through. It's like, yeah, these guys are good, and I'm part of them. And just that's the impression that I got from watching it. Not that I would have recast him.
I don't think recasting him was the. I don't think recasting him is the option. Wow, we just lost Shadow and Jack.
Uh-oh. Well, they just had the big earthquake in California?
Oh no! Now they have beachfront property.
In Yuma.
What a shame.
No,
But
maybe
I
consider
just
him.
wish he was just a little bit more mature. I just
Right, and I think that's that's the point. I'm agreeing with you on that.
all right. Well,
It's almost the character was too impetuous for the age of the actor.
right. I was expecting him to get shot. Actually, I was kind of rooting for him to get shot during most of it.
He almost did.
Oh yeah, he came close. He didn't he get shot?
No,
No.
That did. His head got shot off.
Yeah. I'm like, because Steve McQueen got shot in the leg. Steve McQueen, I got shot in the leg. Most of them died. I know that.
three that didn't die, right?
Yeah, Steve McQueen,
Kristen Ben
the kid.
and
Yeah.
Chico.
I just, I don't know. I like this movie. Don't get me wrong. This movie was good.
I love this movie. I watch it every year. I mean, it's one of those Starship Troopers, the book, I read every year. And the Magnificent Seven, I watch every year, at least once. It's a must watch because of, again, the dialogue. And I love the scene. I love that opening scene at the when they're riding up to Boot Hill, right? Even though they're not in Tombstone, you get the impression like in Douglas or Bisbee or someplace close to Tombstone, but not Tombstone.
Well, I think all they were referring to Boot Hill is a reference that Boot Hill was a reference for
To
in
the
this
cemetery.
case, was any cemetery. But
Right.
you're right. They even talk about Dodge. Any action? No. Any Dodge there? No. Everything's drying up.
Right, they're grown up. But the scene, when they're when they get shot and he shoots a cigar and he says, "Did you get elected?" No, but I got nominated real good.
Yeah.
The little lines like that all through the movie. When Vin says to Tuco, "We deal in lead, friend." Those are the things that when you're playing a role-playing game, you just hope that you can say those. You have your characters say those. At least me, because when I play an RPG or when I DM an RPG, I want to have that immersive experience, and I want to eat, sleep, and breathe that character. Not like to the level of like a Gary Oldman, but hey, yeah, we deal in lead, friend. Oh, that's such a badass line.
Well, the other part is only as competitors, or the other parts will get cheaper by the bunch. He says, even five they couldn't afford. It's, but yeah.
The first encounter at the village, yeah, we're cheaper by the bunch.
Yep. Well, I like that. Well, I like the, even Eli Wallach. He says, the women's fashions are shameless, and people have lost their piety. We went over and talk about robbing. Of course, we robbed him. I'm telling him how much people have lost their faith.
He stole the candlesticks.
Yes. Of course, we stole the candlesticks, but I'm trying to make a point here. That's what I.
There was a joke that Steve McQueen said about the guy falling from a building.
Yeah, so far so good.
So
good.
Well, I like that. Well, I like the old man too. Like I said, it's just the old thing of I never cared for the enthusiasm for fertilizer, and as for women, I lost interest when I turned 83.
That's right. That's right.
What kills me is I was looking up the guy. I was looking up in the cast, and the old man's actually not Mexican.
Wallach wasn't Mexican either, right? He's Jewish.
Who was it?
Eli Wallach.
Eli Wallach. Little Jewish guy, little Mexican guy.
Oh, speaking of which, and I don't remember what it was, but they decided to film in Mexico, and there was a Western that they did that made the Mexicans look bad, and people rioted and everything when it went to the movie. So when they did this one, they had the Mexican government was out there to make sure the Mexicans were represented very well. And he said that's where they changed some of the beginning lines where he said, "Why are you buying guns? Men are cheaper." Because they didn't want them to make it seem like they had to rely on them. The point is that they couldn't afford the guns. And they couldn't afford it was cheaper to buy the men than it was the guns, was the whole point.
Yeah, no, I was looking at the cast and the old man. When you said you like the old man, I'm like, huh, Wonder who played him. And his name was like Vladimir. I don't know, something Russian.
Well, I do like Russians and Russia by proxy.
Well, the kid Chico is German. Horschel,
Yeah.
Horst.
Horst, yeah. So he was actually German and did a lot of acting in Germany, most of his life. So
God, his family must have got out of Germany right at the right time. He was born in 1933.
yeah, I think he was West German at that point, not East German.
Yeah.
Speaking of the guns, though, that town would have made a pretty penny, after the battle, doing the usual looting the dead. There was a crap ton of hardware and horses left over.
That's what I was
They
thinking.
didn't.
Yeah,
I'm certain they did. I'm sure everybody, from that point on, learned the value, should
They were
something like
they
that
were
ever.
eating chicken enchiladas. They're eating horse enchiladas afterwards.
Yeah.
In some cases, probably. I mean,
No. My ex did the Spanish Mustang, and a lot of horses disappeared. One of them actually says eaten by Mexicans. Once the horse got kind of old, they were put in the stew pot and eat. There was this love. This people that have this love for horses. No, people ate horses all the time before the, during that era.
I know. I was about to say. I know the Mongolians did. I mean, they basically worshipped horses. They drank horse milk. I mean, every part of the horse to them could be used. And when the horse was either too old or knocked off, they ate the horse. I'm like, okay, whatever. To each their own.
To each their own is kind of cringe. Not going to lie.
I mean, the old joke. Why do we eat cows and not horses? Because the horses had the common sense to run.
Yeah.
speaking of cows, that was one scrawny, emaciated cow that Chico was interacting with.
Yes,
Oh, what happened?
I agree with you.
The bull.
You know what? That cow
Hey,
looks
what's up, Six Nations?
but yep.
When you gotta eat, you gotta eat.
Was probably very young steer or young bull.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have any complaints about the actors. Did everybody here enjoy the actors they picked to play those characters?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. For many, this was probably their crowning achievement. They could dine off this for free for the rest of their lives.
And with such an ensemble cast, really. I mean, I said James Coburn, Brit. I think he had less than like 10 lines in the whole movie.
Oh,
and
God.
we could name them all.
Yeah.
Right, but he had one of the most important lines. Nobody hands me my guns and tells me to run. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm not going. I'm going back.
I love
when
when
they
he shoots.
Did you forget somebody there, Six Nations?
For the man. But still, what's the worst shot ever? I was aiming at the horse.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like that aspect. I like it when he was, when they found the three, which to be fair, they, I'll say this much. The pacing for the movie is good. The sound is good for it. The characters are likable. I can't really think of anything I would cut out of the movie. Like sometimes I'm like, you can cut 20 minutes out of here or something.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have anything like that. It's,
Nope.
And,
Even the opening, nice, nothing too, Michael Bay, but it was still, a nice scene of the horses running and everything, the costumes. I mean, they must have spent quite a bit.
Costumes. We can open up those costumes. The half of the costumes were absolutely terrible because that's not how people dress. That's the 1960s perception of a Western movie. Little tiny hats, little tiny crowns, little tiny brooms. Looked like I got hit in the head with the frying pan. None of the big sombreros, none of the big hats you'd expect to see in a real Western movie. Yul Brynner's character wearing black, which you never would have seen. But
Yeah.
Outside of a black and white film.
outside of a black and white movie. But the costumes I could definitely fault, but the score more than makes up for it.
Well, you're right.
The score is
costumes-
the best score ever committed to film, and I'm saying that comparing it to like John Williams stuff, better than that. That overture, and everyone knows that. You hear like the first 3 or 4 bars of that overture, and
Yep.
you know exactly, and it goes that way through the whole movie. That score does not let up. It's amazing.
What were you going to say, Jack?
I was gonna say that the costumes, I'm not entirely sure why every single villager was wearing a uniform for their village.
Because
they were
they
wearing-
were told
They weren't just all wearing white. They were wearing the exact same, identical white clothing.
Actually,
Yes.
it was
and
It's
actually,
not what you would have seen anywhere.
It was all
Well-
spun and woven by the same person, or it was all
Right.
the same nanas in the village made the clothes for everybody.
Well, yeah,
And-
but then
and
why
here's
do they
the-
have other clothes when they went over to
because the
America?
Mexican government didn't want them to be shown as being dirty. That, believe it or not, the Mexican government was involved in a lot of this from a previous film that made the Mexicans look bad. So they had to do certain things with, and that's why all their clothes look nice and clean and white.
about to
That was
say,
the Mexican government deciding that.
I mean, those were.
Well,
those were
there's a reason why I don't
clean-
recognize the current government.
Well,
Well,
the,
there's
the one from
probably a revolution since then.
1860.
No, I mean the current Mexican state.
Oh,
Sure.
okay.
There's a reason I have that
Wow.
flag back there.
I always amused me. Well, in the very beginning, when they get to town and Chico goes and rings the alarm bell, and see you can't be bothered to come, greet us. We're gonna save you guys. But if somebody rings that bell, y'all come out like a bunch of chickens running all around. I'm like, oh my god.
Well, yeah, but this is why I love the old man. Is he's
Yeah.
laughing while he's doing that? He's showing,
Yeah.
and he's shaming them.
How do you keep? I live in Illinois, and right now I don't live by really any farmers, but I've lived by farmers, and they're anything. And I'm not saying they're dirty people, but when you're coming off of a field, you're anything but clean. And that show could have been a commercial for a clothes cleaning company.
Well, as I said, the Mexican government, you have to go. I forgot what the film was. It was it was a few years before, but it showed the Mexican peasants in such a bad light that people in the movie theaters in Mexico rioted. And so when they
Really?
did this and they were showing stuff, yeah. So the Mexican government was on site to make sure that the Mexican peasants were not shown in a bad light. That's
What
why
would be
the
the
clothes
scope
would be
back
And
clean.
actually, there was another story. Eli Wallach told the story about all during the filming to bond with his gang. They went out when they were on their horses. They would ride out all day long on their horses, and so that they actually looked at him as their leader. Their real leader, not just their pretend movie leader.
Well, the
Hey,
other
maybe
part is,
I had a question. Maybe one of you guys can answer. In the fields, they had those sort of like teepee shaped things. What were those? They're like
I
made
thought
out of
those
the
might have been
corn
hives.
stalk.
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I thought those might have been hives. They never, or I mean,
I'd have
I-
to watch it again.
I you know what? I was looking at some of that. I thought some of it was to dry their
Corn.
corn.
yeah,
I could
very
be
well be.
wrong. That's what I was thinking. Some of it was.
I bet you that's what it is. I just I've seen them twice. I saw them twice watching the movie. And I was still looking out, but it wasn't. It's not uncommon for farmers to keep beehives in their field to help propagate the field. So I was just thinking they're just big ass beehives. but somewhere to store the grain, that makes sense too.
Well. If you notice
No,
the very
I thought it
beginning,
was
that they
more
had
like
that.
I thought it was more to like you guys said to dry, because I know they use the leaves to make tamales and things like that. Maybe that was a thing, but they didn't really talk about tamales. Instead, it was enchiladas, which is actually kind of a fancy dish in some situations.
Yeah, even it still is somewhat of a fancy dish today. I mean, then again,
Yeah.
and the food from me talking about since I work in the field of food, a lot of what we consider now to be high end eating used to be peasant food. I mean, for example, lobster. Only people that ate lobster in the very beginning were slaves. There was a law on books saying how many lobsters you could feed your slaves because it was considered unhealthy.
And prison.
Now,
Yep, and prison. Well, to be fair, a lot of it was poor refrigeration, and so
right.
that really would do it. But you're right. It's my great grandparents used to view lobster as poor people's food because that's what they had during the Depression, and chicken was the expensive food.
If they're being authentic, the people of that time in that era would have eaten squash, beans, and corn. That would have been their staple.
Exactly. Well, that and
And
sometimes I've eaten insects and a few other things. I know that I've talked to people out there.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite dishes is a French dish called vichyssoise, and it's poor food. I mean, if you look at it historically, and now it's that decent restaurant, you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 15 bucks per bowl. What I wanted to see food wise in this show was I wanted to see gazpacho. I thought, I want to see a great big bowl of gazpacho, but that didn't happen.
Well, carne asada, chicken enchiladas. I mean, as soon as you start mentioning anything with meat, that's expensive food.
Yeah, that
part.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, I agree with that. So that's what I thought it was. Is I remember seeing stuff like that, but I thought it was to dry out.
I am not a farmer by any stretch of the imagination. I just, like I said, I knew they used to keep bees close to the fields to help pollinate.
I don't know on how much, I don't know how much apiary was there for this. And a lot of stuff in the Americas it's done by native, like corn and stuff was done by native bees. It wasn't until you start getting wheat and a few of the other, European crops that you're really starting to look at some of those others. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stuff in there, but
how many horse handlers do you think had to get hired for this movie?
A few.
Probably about 100. Probably an even 100.
Yeah, you probably rotated a couple of them out just to make sure they were doing okay. I will say this much: the first battle that they have with Wallach. Now, I could have sworn it was up to me, and maybe it looks a little blurry, but it looks like Eli Wallach's actually riding the horse as they're jumping over some of the walls.
I think he did. I've seen him. I've seen him in, of course, Clint Eastwood movies, and he looked like he knew his way around the horse.
But I mean, this was relative.
How many westerns would it take for you to pick up that skill, right?
Well, and to be fair, what is it, about 7 or 8 years later? So, but I think on this one, he wasn't that well trained on riding a horse, and but the fact is if you watch it, he's jumping over like 3-foot high walls and stuff. I mean,
right. That one scene where Jackie and I were talking about where the horses were doing the multiple jumps. That was so well shot. That's possibly one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie, other than the last gunfight.
I think I'm a fan of horses. I've passed the capability to ride comfortably anymore, but I used to go horseback riding whenever I could growing up.
Yeah,
go for it.
I was to say, I dated a girl who had a couple of horses, so I got plenty of riding experience. I wasn't gonna, but it's not as easy as you think, but it's also not as hard as you think.
No, it's just
So much of it depends on the horse. That's what the big thing is. So
the
much
personality of the horse, the
Yeah.
horse wants to be an ass. There's just nothing you can do about it.
Right. Well, that's why you've got to spend time with the horse and
or scraped off a food post.
Yeah. I was watching this old Western. It was oh God, it was really popular in America. There was a restaurant named after it because Big Hoss started it. Ponderosa. Is that the name?
Yeah, there
I'm
was
familiar with it. It's kind of like
Ponderosa,
Sizzler or something like that. It's very
Yeah, but
similar.
the name of the show is like something like that.
Oh, yeah, you're
Bonanza?
talking
Bonanza.
Bonanza.
Bonanza. There it is. Anyways,
Ponderosa was the name of the ranch in Nevada that they lived on.
yeah,
Right.
the show was way before my time and was barely even on as reruns when it was by the time it got my interest. But the guy who played not Haas, but the guy who did Highway to Heaven later on in
Michael Landon.
he was
wow.
Speaking of Jewish actors.
He was known to keep fruit or whatever in his pocket. They keep the horse's attention.
Yeah, that's anybody who has any interaction with horses knows it's just like a dog. You carry a couple of milk bones around and he's your best buddy.
Well, that was interesting. Horses always, anyways. So this is a remake of a Japanese film that was made in 1954.
Yep.
So did any of you guys see? I know we're talking about the old one, but I have to ask: did any of you guys see the new one, the one that came out in 2016?
I did.
There was the remake of
I don't really want to say it has a similar name, the same story plot, but it was not the same movie.
No, it wasn't. Well, the problem that I had with some of it is they tried incorporating a revenge element and a few other things in there that, the point of this to me is that you get a bunch of bad men that are doing a good deed, and it's a form of redemption for them. That's part of the reason I like the Magnificent Seven so well is these are not good men. I mean, for the most part, and this is their one act of being good men, whether they like it or not. It's like, well, okay, we'll have a
the only problem I have with that notion is that the character Chris seemed like from the very beginning that I can't picture him of being like a bad guy prior to this, even though you got him in black and he's a hard ass, but every word that comes out of his mouth is like, I don't want to say like paladin like, but he's very, very much an honorable guy. It seems.
It's not that they're bad men. It's that it's the end of their lifestyle. It's the end. That's why. If you're gonna go out, you may as well go out with a bang, right? If we're gonna go out, you think about it. If your whole lifestyle they even talk about that. Well, with Vin's character. Well, I got offered a job to be a stock boy at the grocery store, and then the Mexican guy says, "And it's good, steady work." Yeah. Well, okay. Do I ride to my death for $20, or do I hang at my spurs? This is like, think about this as a game. These are like the adventurers that are done. There are no more dragons to kill. There are no more maids to rescue. This is it.
All the dungeons have been packed. Yeah.
So let's go down. Let's have one last ride, and whatever happens, happens. And it just happens to be a good moral job. Well, okay. I think that's secondary.
Well, I still think there's a redemption thing. This is going to be our last job? Let's do something good.
I think there was a redemption I think there was a redemption arc for at least one of the characters in it, maybe even two. Charles Brenson's character, I think he was just looking for work, to be honest, and he had. I don't want to sound like Taken, where he had a particular, he doesn't have much money, but he has a particular set of skills. But that kind of falls in line with all these characters. I don't think any of them were really bad guys. I think Harry was kind of sleazy. Don't get me wrong. That was like the one personality hiccup I had with him. Was like, he's kind of a sleazeball. But they were not bad guys. They were just. It was the old West. we're
Just
also
because you're a bad guy does not
doesn't
mean
mean
you're
they're bad guys. Yes.
Well,
Well,
here's the other.
I don't know. I mean, a little bit more backstory on each character, would have answered a lot of these questions, and I think they wanted to keep, a lot of that mystery to them.
Absolutely.
But at least with the character of Lee, he seemed like he was pretty. He needed this. You know what I mean?
If they were truly bad guys, they would have walked when they got into town. And
Yep,
when the new
exactly.
dad offered, it's like, why don't you join me? I'll pay you more. They would have said, okay, cool.
Well, they're men of honor, right?
Right, yeah.
Well, that was the other part. Is if you look at it, and whether you realize or not, go look at the wars they're mentioning for Bernardo O'Reilly. He wasn't on the good side.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, this is the part of it when they're coming down to it is, I agree with you on that, but that's part of the reason that they take this is not only is the end of their lifestyle, but the other part is that it's a redemption for all the things that they had done before they came to this point.
For redemption, you have to look for it, and I don't think Chris or Vin.
You don't have to look for redemption. When redemption finds it, you take it. That's kind of the thing. It's the way I'm looking at it. Remember, they didn't have to go. None of them had to go. All of them had taken jobs worth a lot more money than this one.
I honestly, I think with Charles Bronson, though, it was, I'm cutting wood for a place to live and eat. I need money. And if I can do a little good, why not?
Well, but yeah, but I mean, but even, whether it's Chris or Vin, Chris didn't have to go. He said, okay, I'll help you out, but that doesn't mean I'm going. Notice, and yet he still threw in his money.
Right.
I mean, the only two people that were not in it, I want to say for the redemption aspect, like James Coburn's character, I'm coming because it sounds interesting. I'm going to test myself. Then Vin is like, okay, I don't want to have a normal life, but this seems like an honorable thing. That's fine. Chris gets sucked into it when he's like, well, these are the only thing that these people have. So, okay. Yeah. I mean, there's this whole thing of they're men that are hard, that have turned a lot of things to the, like
well,
he says.
Not only that, but think about, Chris's attitude at the very beginning of the movie, willing to, face the whole town to bury the Indian, it's like, what the hell, no, absolutely not one, one iota of racism in the guy. And then, when this trio of Mexicans come, hat in hand, asking for, the ultimate sacrifice, for the sake of, these people who are, never hurt a fly, just want to be left alone. And, you don't get much,
They're heroes.
At least chaotic good or gooder than that. I know that's not a word, but, you know what I mean? You don't. I mean, he was a hero. I mean, it's hard to picture him, ever. I mean, he wasn't going to get paid for the funeral. He was just like, this just needs to be done. How can you guys, just let this guy just, stink up the streets or whatever, just because.
Oh, you're talking about the thing at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm incredibly confused as to why anybody would risk their lives just to prevent some Indian guy from getting buried with a bunch of
Indian? I thought he was.
He was half Indian.
Half Indian. That's even dumber.
Only to be buried in Boot Hill. And if you guys know, Boot Hill is like, your pauper's grave, so to speak. It's where they get rid of the garbage, and they couldn't even let that happen. What were they going to do? Just throw them out, a mile out of town, and
even if you really hate Indians, that's just stupid.
No, you don't understand on how you don't know. You're trying to look at it from a modern American perspective, man. There was a time like they said, it got civilized, and civilized people stay with civilized people.
I mean, that kind of racism.
It's beyond just racism. It's about a bunch of things.
All right, guys. Have a happy Mother's
Well,
Day.
to say that there were native cultures completely savage would be a complete lie.
Take care, Bo.
But
goodbye,
Bo.
Yeah, he's going to go celebrate Mother's Day. I was trying to get you. It doesn't matter, but I know of major cities up until maybe the 70s, where the whites were buried on one side and the not whites were buried on, well, the other side, and the two may never mingle.
Oh, it's not just that much. It's also the fact of, don't forget, we're talking about things, Christians, Catholics versus Baptist. It was,
Oh, yeah.
but the whole point of this was that was just, since when did the cemetery become this way? When, like you said, it's a whole bunch of barflies and
Prostitutes
thieves.
and yeah.
Since when did this happen? So since the town became civilized, that was the whole point.
Right.
But you're right. He was kind of like, I don't really care, and I like the whole thing with the very beginning guys. He says, "Look, I just came by. I didn't want to do anything. This man falls dead. People just walk around him and do nothing." And he says, "Well, I gave the money for it." And it's it's like I love the Undertaker.
Hey, where's my camera deck?
The Undertaker going, "Well, for $20, I'll bury anyone with a hoop and a holler."
Yep.
Well, $20. I mean, I know the joke. Joke now is $20 is $20, but back, $20
back then you'd probably get your pistol, your ammo, your belt, and a meal.
There was
Well,
$20.
no, because I remember somebody saying that $20 couldn't even you couldn't buy that much with $20.
$20
They made a point about that.
wouldn't even cover the ammo.
Yeah, $20.
Yeah, wouldn't even cover
if
the
I
ammo.
remember correctly for this time frame. I don't have to go look at the old stuff, but I think the average soldier made like $20 or $30 a month. He only made like $1 a day. It was not too much. So when they say 6 weeks, that's pretty.
I'm sure $20 for 6 weeks, but still, they do make a point that saying $20 or that the pay won't even cut it for the ammo.
Yeah.
Which whether or not that's realistic for the time,
sure,
probably might not be true. But
my great grandparents on my mom's side owned a tract of land in Tennessee, and every year they had to pay $10 for the land, just for land, $10. So that's every year. So if somebody's paying you $20, you got $20 extra just floating around. That it's not you're a gun a shooter or whatever. That's a lot of money for back then. That takes care of any not major, but any extra bump that comes along you weren't expecting.
So they were getting free food, room and board. So yeah, you know what? I just had an idea, at least for me and certain games we might be interested in playing. I'm gonna have to try and find some old Sears and Roebuck catalogs. I know they're gonna cost a pretty penny, but I'd be very interested to see, actual prices for a good number of things from different, time periods, like the Old West, WW2 era, and maybe even, the 80s or the 70s for certain game campaigns. I could see running, a top secret game during the 80s is the only way to play it as far as I'm concerned.
Well, 1960s or 1970s. I mean, you can do that whole. It has to be Cold War.
Well, just for me though, having lived in it, I think I could do the narrations better. I'm sure I was around in the 70s, but I didn't know what I know now, and I could just see it being a little bit more, Austin Powers maybe kind of thing.
Sure,
Although that was actually the 60s, but at least from my own perspective, I could throw in the cultural things, from having been, more or less an adult during that period.
Well, Sears and Warlock, Jesus, no, Sears and Warbuck, you're talking about. Sorry, anytime I'm playing a fantasy game, if somebody hands me the huge, book of all the magical items, I call it the Sears and Warlock, just for shits and giggles. But I'm pretty sure the local branch, not the local branch, but the big branch library I have over in Peoria might still have would have at least maybe one or two of those, because those. They go, libraries normally will keep everything to a certain degree.
I'm going to say this much. There's a lot of stuff that you can get that's been scanned in. I was looking at it, and it looks like, about $20 would about 1,000 rounds.
All right.
What was that?
So for 1,000 rounds of ammo would have been about $20.
Or
Back
$12. Yeah, a top it. Cigars 5 cents, 10 cents for high end.
And a lot of it depends. We laugh at it, but if you start looking at a good shirt, good pair of pants, I mean, you're starting to get up in cost, and people forget about that and how much. We're used to things, but there was very little inflation, I think, between for how much the price of gold was changed very little for $1 until about until they brought in the Federal Reserve. So we're talking after World War I.
Shad, now that I'm thinking about it, even that phrase that you said, shiny penny, that saying has meaning behind it. It might not have the same meaning now that it did when it first was coined. Not to be punny, but when it was first coined, it's just in this movie, $20 to go right to your death for a good cause. 2 months worth of pay, free food and board. I'm probably better than a bunch of guys messing around on the horses. Sure, I can make this work. I'm not saying that's their thought processing, but I can see that thought processing happen, especially if any of these guys have any proper military training for back in the day, or if there are hired guns and they've lived that old. I mean, that's that's not one of those jobs that you retire from with a pension. Every job you take is the last job you might take.
Well, yeah, and it wasn't enough for that, but that's where they were all, I like that, I like your notions of fair odds, with that. But there are great one lines in there. But the other part is, imagine playing D&D where you get experience. And we're not talking 5e, we're talking the old style, where you get experience by gold pieces, and to find out that you're only going to get 20 gold pieces, 20 XP from that. And you tell players, oh, this is what your adventure is. Are you going to take it? Most players go, no, I need something that pays more. I'm not trying to be mean about it, but
it's fair. It's a fair statement.
Well, most of these guys are neutral with good tendencies, is my view. That's what's coming into it.
Or chaotic good, maybe chaotic good.
Yeah, or neutral good. I don't want to say, to me, chaotic would have meant they didn't care about any rules.
Henry would definitely be, if anytime somebody's special use Shadow, when you say chaotic good, you normally say greedy bastards. Henry was somewhat of a not so much greedy bastard, but if he could make his fortune off of this, he would have done it.
You mean Harry?
Harry, yeah, that's
see. To me, the neutral is that you still have a code. Chaotic would be like, oh, I have it when I feel like it. It's more of a goal rather than a code. But yeah, I definitely, but that's what to me makes this good is they're all. I don't know if any of you've watched the Seven Samurai, which this is based off.
I'm going to have to now. I really am going to have.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times, but it's been just about as long since I watched this the first time.
It's on HBO Plus.
Yeah, it should be on HBO Max.
It's also on Amazon. I don't know about Seven Samurai. I still gotta, we thought we were ahead because we watched the sequel, and we're lucky if we literally get one movie a week. If we really wanted to, we could make it a little bit more of a priority, but
it's not.
This is supposed to be fun. Honestly, guys, This is supposed to be fun. This is not homework.
No, it was, and we were actually, we timed it right. We didn't have anything else we had to do. A lot of times we do our yard work on Sunday, just because our schedules are really not as full as Bo's, but Jackie's is pretty regimented, and so taking time away, when summer rolls around, it'll be different. We'll be able to
maybe not. Depends.
Do some more stuff, except when he does go to Mexico for 3 weeks. But we'll,
if you go to Mexico, I want a statue of Saint Guadalupe. Guadalupe. I mess up. It's a patron. I think it's a patron saint of Mexico City. There's a story behind him that I really love. Help me out here, Jack.
I'll look. I think I know who you're talking about, but if it's who I think it is, then you are completely wrong. If it's who I think it is.
Guadalupe? See, this is the problem. I used to be able to pronounce, foreign names, but I've lived in Central Illinois.
Words?
No, it's names. I can say words all day long. They just might not.
You sure about that?
Asleep there all then, or are you reading?
Right?
Is it you fall asleep there, Owen, or are you reading?
I'm trying to look up saints for Mexico.
Okay.
Guadalupe.
Guadalupe?
Yeah.
Well, there's the version of Guadalupe, which is the Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
The story goes.
Why don't they just call her Mary?
It's a guy. It's a guy who goes out in the field, and the Virgin Mary appears to him. He tells him that a church needs to be built here. He goes back to where he's from. They say he's nuts. He goes back out there and says, "Please, help me." She comes back and she says, "Open up your shirt," and she fills it up with a bunch of these type of roses. He goes back to the church, dumps the roses on the floor, and there is a picture of Virgin Mary on the shirt.
So San Juan Diego Kahutala Totzin.
Yeah, I'm never gonna be able to pronounce that.
Yeah, I know I can't either, but
Neither is Owen.
Yeah, I could if I had the words, but I don't have the words.
Look at the screen.
San Juan Diego.
San Juan Diego Guajaloatzin?
Exactly, that's the question.
This is the last language where I kick myself in the ass because when I was in high school, the languages were offered French, Italian, and Spanish. And I'm like, not Italian, Latin, French, and Spanish. And I'm like, well, I'll just take Latin. I can already speak it. That's gonna be an easy, Catholic. And I should have took Spanish.
Should have.
I took French, and
why would you take French?
Yeah, because it works with the ladies.
Pretty much.
Well, madame, Shari, may I get you a glass of wine?
Because you're trying to think the modern era versus the old era, where the French women were generally considered a lot more loose and attractive. That's
Anyways, back to this. All in all, this movie was great. It was a great pick. I have nothing really bad to say about this movie other than the fact that I wish all of the characters would have got a little bit more background into who they were. The only one we did get background on was the guy whose nerves were shot, only long enough to get, oh, wait, he's seen some shit, and he's not who he used to be.
I'm going to bring this up, though. Do we really need to watch another 2.5-hour movie?
No, we don't.
You're saying, well, stuff needs to be filled up, and I'm going, there's a certain point for this. The pacing was fantastic. To put all this background in there would have just made it longer without, I think, really adding that much more.
That's fair. It's just these characters are amazing. I mean, even the one, the knife thrower, I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Brick.
Just when they go to find him and he's just laying up against the fence, minding his own damn business, and that guy is like, "No, you're lying. You gotta be lying." Then he has a knife versus a gun contest, and he wins. And the guy's like, "No, you're cheating." Then they do it for real. You get the pretense that this guy is the deal. This is, he is silent. Guy sounds like a fart. He's silent but deadly, and that's a really cool opening for this guy. Granted, so Chris and Steve McQueen had a great opening when they're willing to put themselves out to take a car up to a graveyard to have this guy. You get the essence of their character with that scene by itself.
Yep.
You get essence of the essence of who that guy was with the knife with that scene. The kid, I don't know. I don't mind the character. He served a point in the movie. I wanted him to go home.
Well, he did.
Him to go home.
He did.
Yeah, I think
he happily ever after.
Exactly. He represents the happily ever after. The learning the lesson of turning away from the violence to re-embrace his roots.
Yeah, that's why
and,
at the end they
and,
said
and
that
hope.
only the farmers won, and he's a farmer now because
He was always
He
a
won.
farmer. He
Well,
was
You know,
yeah.
always a
it was
farmer.
also
he went back to
it was
being.
also the Chris and Steve McQueen's character's way of saying, at least one of us is going to get, a happy ending, and
Yeah, it
you
was
know,
that whole.
I mean,
Oh,
I'm
wait,
glad that some
that
of
was-
them made it
that was
out.
cool.
I'm glad that some of them made it out alive, but I don't think movies like these need to have a happy ending.
You don't think anything needs to have a happy ending, Connell?
That's not true. That is not true. I'm glad that Princess Bride had a happy ending. Don't
But
take
it
that
did-
from me. But it did.
it
Yeah,
did-
the book you didn't. It really didn't.
Well, here's the other thing. When we were
Exactly.
talking about Brit, is, I used to, and I watched, and I have to compare these to Seven Samurai. It's interesting that, when they immediately came back, what happened? He said, well, I found the perfect man, and he decided not to come. And then it means a lot when he walks through the door, that he was thinking about it. So to me, there's this thing of, maybe one last thing to go out on a good note. That's kind of the way I was feeling. That's why I call it, this is a redemption for most of these characters, because they were worth a lot more money than what they went down there for.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. And who would have faulted him for not going? They
Who
could've just
would have
said, "No,
faulted
this
him
is
for
ridiculous."
leaving? I mean, it's very easy for us to say that, but let's face it. Even for them leaving, at the end, it's like, look, we're going to get killed if we go fight off against these guys again. He's let us go home. And sometimes, like, okay, like he says, you turn your picture, you turn your mother's picture to the wall and you run. There's a certain point where you do that, and you're right.
The town. I mean, all but a handful of the town turned their backs on them. This town was going to pay us. Now they want us to go. As far as I'm, not me personally,
Yes.
but as far as I'm concerned, this contract is non-void. We're done. It's just
Exactly.
Yeah, I do get that thought, and trust me, I've had that thought a couple times in campaigns I'm in, where the story goes basically in that direction, and I'm like, listen, guys, I'm not one to stay where I'm not wanted. I'm sure I can find fame and glory somewhere else.
But that's the test. That is the test to see. When the chips are down and it's not going your way, are you still man enough to stick to your word, even when no one wants you to? It's not a matter of it's your thing. Even though they practically beg you, no, we don't want you to do this. It don't matter. The deal wasn't with you and the money, whatever. It was with me and me. Am I going to do this, or am I going to, turn tail and run? I got to live with myself after this, and I can't do that. Even though you want me to do that, I have my word and I have my own code. I have to do this. They all did.
I would like to think, if me, not a movie character, but me, was put in that situation, I would do the right thing in return. But at the end of the day, no one knows what that answer to that question is going to be until that actually happens.
Well,
Right.
and the whole part is like, well, I was thinking, because they became, they became affiliated, which is interesting if you look at the end. Both Britt and Chris were liking staying there, but notice they don't stay there at the end. They move on, even though they were thinking of settling down in that, and
Yep.
We could have had a good life here. And they went, yeah, but that's not the life for us.
But I thought Britt died.
What's that?
He's talking about
Chris and
about
Britt.
Chris.
Yeah,
You said Britt, but you're talking
Chris
Finn.
and Ben.
I knew you were talking
Chris
about
and Ben.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chris
I
and
know
Ben
what
is what I'm
you're talking
referring to. Sorry. You're right.
I
Oh,
knew you were talking
and
about Britt a couple
Not
of
only that, but they probably would have painted a big old target on that town.
No one
if
was
they
left.
stayed.
I mean, I don't think that they would
No,
have.
I don't mean that. I don't mean those. I don't mean the bandits. I mean, the word would have spread that these famous gunfighters are now living here. People would be coming every week or so. Someone would come in and tell them to draw. And someone's going to get shot. Accident,
In
innocent
the
bystander.
1890s? No, this is the middle of nowhere.
I was about to say, if it
Maybe.
was 40 years before then, I give you that.
Definitely
But
not 40, but
20
10.
to 30, I don't know.
No, the Old West period was much shorter than most people think it is.
Yeah. Well, this is the end of it. Like I said, when they said Johnson.
Well, yeah, this was the end of it, but even it wasn't. Unless this was during like 1910 or something, even then that's pushing it. 40 years would be
about 50
Civil War.
years. I thought the
Yeah,
Wild
exactly.
West
That's the
lasted
point.
about
Is we're
50
talking
years.
about where the West is not civilized. The whole point of this is the West is becoming civilized.
Yeah.
The Indians are
Well, no,
gone.
I'm just saying
Mexican-
40
yeah.
years is way too long. Because it's a common thing people imagine that the Old West was a lot longer than it really was.
Like I said, I always thought the Wild
Like 2
West
decades.
era lasted about 50 years before it came to an end.
Well, my
Nope.
view
That's why I
is
said
it really
40.
happened from about the time you were looking at the Texas aspect
Yeah.
till the time of probably about the 1890s, and after that you're about done. Because we're looking at the Johnson County War, where people were fencing everything off, and the cattle drives were all going down and things like that.
I know we're not watching it. I really wish one of us did pick it. I should have picked it because it's one of my favorite westerns. But the problem with the Young Guns movie is you got to watch the first one and the second one to get the full story. In my opinion, you can't. It's like the Star Wars movies. You just can't pick and choose. You need to start with one and end with the last, even if it's just the first three. However, wherever you decide to get off the train for that set of movies is where you got the train. But with the Young Guns about Billy the Kid, you can't watch the first one without watching the second one. But I like the end of the second one which it did happen. I'm not saying that guy was Billy the Kid, but some guy came out of the desert claiming to be Billy the Kid, surrendering himself. He knew all the stories of it, and that was in the 1950s when he's like, I'm 80 years old. I give up. Take me to the local jail. And that's probably for endings. I like that when it comes. I thought it was interesting for a Western movie because that really was a Western, Western movie. But when it comes to this one, I'm not saying it's realistic, but I can see something like this happening, a variation of something like this happening.
Well, a lot of this is, I mean, again, you have to look at where this came from, the Seven Samurai.
Oh, so 60 years.
Yeah, that's what though is I would, like I said, 1820s to probably early 1900s, basically where everything was being, because that's where you started getting it went from the Indians, and then when the Indians dropped off sometime in the 1870s, then we started going off into the then we started going into the range, where people are fighting, where ranchers versus the homesteaders.
Yeah.
That's this time frame. But like I said, we're sometime in the 1890s for this. And if even what is it? What's the Wild Bunch or whatever, where they go down to South America and die?
I think so.
Yeah, there's that part where it's like, look, it's getting too dangerous. You can't hide out anymore. It's time to go to a different country. And I think there's sometimes for that. I mean, we all love the idea of it. It doesn't matter where it is. You could do it in Afghanistan. You could do it over in Ukraine right now. You can do it for a lot of these things. Bosnia-Herzegovina during that war. All you have to do is find a place that is not well settled, where there's a lot of conflict. Sudan. I mean, we can all find areas that this could probably apply to.
Oh God!
Modern day.
Or in the 90s on a small island next to another island. Yeah, I get it.
Well. Look. Not that we've watched it, but I've heard about what was called Machine Gun Preacher.
Oh, great movie. Gerard Butler goes to Africa to help build churches, and it just goes. Yeah, it's a good movie.
And I'll be honest, is I met a guy from Myanmar, which I saw him in Mr. Ballin, and I went, wait a minute, I know that guy. I met the guy when I was going to Iraq, and he was like, hey, he was just sitting next to me. He's like, hey, if you ever want to come over, this is where we have. And I mean, he was doing all this stuff, and I was just listening, like, is this guy for real? Yes, he was for real. This guy was doing that special forces kind of stuff as going, like, he was showing pictures of his daughter, who was 16 years old, so just a little older than Jack, driving around Mosul in an ambulance during the middle of the fighting. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much about where we're looking at. So yeah, it's
Wow.
yep.
Oh yeah, the revolutionaries, not very good,
Um,
like ever in history. But
is there anything else you guys? I mean, this is one of those movies that we just zipped up, nailed down really quickly because it's just a
Well, it
good
was so
movie.
good. I mean,
yeah, there
you
isn't
know,
much more for us to say, and we do have to leave pretty soon.
Oh,
Mexican food's awaiting.
Oh,
oh, I
oh
went to Molly's
wait a
now.
minute. So what are you eating? Is it chicken enchiladas and carne asada?
No, it's actually, I think we're going to Chipotle. So I'm getting a
Is that
burrito.
really
What a
Mexican food?
disappointment! That's not even like
Is
real
that really?
Mexican
Wait,
food.
wait, wait,
I
wait.
know.
know.
Is
I-
that
You
My
I
gotta
mom
go
make
to the
better
good one.
food
too.
than
You not go to the good one like Qdoba? You gotta go to the next cut rate one of Chipotle.
It doesn't even make sense. There's a much better Mexican restaurant like right next to it, but my mom doesn't want to go there because one, it's more expensive, but also because when she went there for her birthday a year or two ago, she got something that wasn't good, and now even though everyone else got things that were good, she just doesn't want to go there.
I am
Oh.
going to have to go to this place in Peoria called Jalapenos, who they more or less make traditional Mexican fare, and it's really
Fair?
fair food. It's just really good.
If the tortillas are not being made with lard, they're not real.
Oh, yeah, no, I all right. So next week we will be talking about I don't remember 1970s.
Westworld.
Westworld.
Yeah,
The
no,
return of Yul Brynner's character.
Yeah, Westworld, and it was
Right.
interesting because I was able to, I sat down and watched all. I'm actually ahead. I've
So am
watched
I.
this and Bone Tomahawk, so I'm good.
I haven't watched that one. I've yet to been able to find a way to watch it.
There's I think it was Voodoo or something. I found it, and it would actually play because Westworld, I was kind of like, what the hell? And then Bone Tomahawk, I was able to find.
Yeah, I
Hey,
know.
real quick, has anybody seen the Jonah Hex movie?
Yes,
No.
I own it.
No, because I saw superhero kind of thing, and I saw what's her name,
Oh, maybe
Okay,
Fox.
real quick.
Fox, and I was just like,
what's
eh.
up?
I mean, being pretty doesn't mean too much if you're just known for being in bad films.
I like the DC character Jonah Hex. I have I don't know 30 of the comic about him at the comic books with him in it. I always enjoyed.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Just one of many. I actually picked up a #1 Jonah Hex from 1977 last week for a steal. Yeah, it scared the crap out of me as a kid too. But I was just curious
Real
because
quick, I gotta go. Bye.
All right, bye, Jack.
All right, bye, Jeff.
I'll see you in a minute. But just curious if anybody had seen it and how accurate it is. But depending on who worked
the
on
guy
it.
who plays Jonah Hex it is a crappy movie with couple good actors in it. He played it. In my opinion, he played the character well. It was just bad writing, in my opinion, when it came to that movie. It wasn't the actor. It wasn't at least that actor. I think he portrayed the character quite well. It's kind of like the Conan movie with Jason Momoa. He played a great Conan. It was just crappy writing. So take that for what it's worth.
I'll say something because going a little bit off tangent. I was quite
That's
pissed off
never-
when Amazon refused to do the Conan movie because they were afraid of too much toxic masculinity. Like that's why people watch Conan, you idiots. Having listened to all 38 hours or so of Conan.
I've seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Volume 3 now twice. First time, I'll enjoyment. Second one, see how much of it I can pick apart. I like it. Some of the people are bitching. My favorite bitch so far is in the first one. They're not wearing the right uniform, especially in the second one. They need to be wearing the uniforms. Now that they're wearing the uniforms, which you can see in the trailer, not giving that away, people are bitching. They've lost their individuality. Make up my
No one really
mind.
cares. I'll be honest. My whole thing when I start hearing this stuff is I watched Avengers Endgame finally, and I went, What a boring, crappy movie.
All I need is the last 20 minutes. Just the last 20 minutes, and I'm happy.
I'm like your pacing is terrible. And I understand all the
Shadow,
people that
you gotta
love stuff.
go.
But yeah. If you have to go, Shadow, then anyway.
Well, you guys dragging me out the door.
I'll
Have a
see you
great week,
Wednesday.
everybody.
I'll see you Wednesday.
Happy Mother's Day,
All right,
everybody.
see you later.
Can I at least push the buttons?
Yes, you can.
Take care, guys.
Bye, Jack.
Thanks for a great afternoon. Bye, guys.
No,
So-
I all these, and I'll be honest, I don't like superhero films for the most part. They
Oh, my
bore the
goodness.
hell out of me. I even when I watch it, like there are some that I enjoyed. I mean, don't get me wrong, but overall, they don't interest me that much. It's
I
okay
get-
to have a couple of powers, but yeah.
I get crap for liking Cocaine Bear. I get crap for liking it. It's on, if anybody wants to watch it, it's on Peacock. If you got Peacock on your TV, it's free. And we might be watching. I might find a way to squeeze it into one of our movies to review. I like Cocaine Bear for the simple fact that everything you need to know about the movie is in the title. There's no hidden agenda, no Disney woke bullshit, no nothing. It is what it says.
You mean exactly like what was it? Kong versus Godzilla?
Yes, straight.
Yeah, it's exactly what I wanted. King Kong fighting Godzilla, and yeah, there were some people in there too. But I got to watch the fight scenes between the two. That's all I cared about.
Oh, really, Nation?
What happened?
Oh, you mean a TV series?
I don't know. Is that the one? Spider-Man?
Oh, yeah, there was a live-action TV series. It was on the same time during as Hulk and Wonder Woman and all of them, or the '60s anime. Spider-Man and his super friends annoy the ever-living hell out of me. They always have. Granted, Bobby Iceman became gay in the '90s, and he was pretty gay in the '60s too. To think about it. Anyways, anywho. So, when's your birthday? Is your birthday coming up?
Yes, it's going to come up in July.
Oh, July. Oh,
So by the time we're done with this, we'll be in the June time frame. If we're going to try to do it, because we always know something comes up. My view is I would like to do foreign films.
well, in June we'll do foreign films. We'll do the next bit, then we'll do foreign films.
Yeah. That's because I know that takes a while and it takes a little bit of effort. And I have a bunch of movies I love that would be great. But I know, like,
I was thinking, honestly, for July, it doesn't have to be July. We could do August. I was thinking maybe a sports month because we all have like sports movies. So, I mean, do you have any sports movies you like?
Oh, I'm trying to think of a few of them which are enjoyable. Okay, look, it's completely guilty pleasure, and it counts as a sports movie. I have two. All right, then I'll do this. One is Talladega Nights.
Oh God, I hate that movie. Okay,
and then the other one is Dodgeball.
Love Dodgeball.
So I mean, those are. I'm not sure if they really count, but I mean, come on.
Not thrilled with the actors in those movies, but I love Dodgeball.
Well, I love Talladega Nights just because the whole thing is just, especially
your face like a spider monkey.
Well, no, I love. He's like, if you can drive with the cougar, if you aren't first, you're last. It's just the whole thing of,
So I'd love to say I did this for the charity point of view, but there was a while. Hold on. There was a while I was giving plasma down living in Nashville. I think that's almost a rite of passage for college students anymore, because that's when I did as first started. But they had that movie, played it back to back to back to back to back, where I could quote the movie, and I'm like, I hate Will Ferrell. I hate this movie. All right, what does Nation has to say? Because he is the most communicative one in chat right now.
Okay, so
a list of films on Discord or something. No, I will have to give out my Discord at some point and make a movie where you can add a list of movies, and we might get to them, we might not. I gotta see what the rest of the. I'm calling us the Ramblers because we ramble on about damn.
So what I'm talking about foreign films. I'm talking generally that are subtitled. There are several films I like, but I figure it takes us about a month and a half or 2 months to get through. Whatever we decide.
There's now 5 of us.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I mean, well, that's fair, and assume that there's one week that we can't make it or something. But
Yeah.
I mean, like I have a list of a variety of films, like, I know that you'd probably pick one. One is what you were mentioning.
Brotherhood of the Wolves.
Brotherhood of the Wolf, which I thought was, that one I really enjoyed. But that's there's another one that I think is really cool, which is a Russian one called Night
Night Watch.
Night Watch. So there's Night Watch. There's the I like Ran, which if anyone wants to do a samurai film, watch Ran, because that does not. The one thing I liked about Akira Kurosawa is he does not have this romanticized ideal about samurai. But Ran's a long one. It's about 2.5 hours. But you want to talk, and it gets slow in parts. But man, when they do their fight scenes are awesome, because they're like, one point they have gunfire versus arrows, because people forget that the samurai used a lot of gunpowder weapons after the Dutch and the Portuguese came.
What was the movie with Tom Cruise? I thought it was an absolutely brilliant movie. Last Samurai.
Oh,
If they
God.
could have just got rid of Tom Cruise, it would have been a great movie.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. That's the way I felt. I felt that way too. I was like, no, I'd rather watch it. I'm trying to think. Oh, Goodbye Lenin is a funny one. I don't know if anyone's seen that.
That one has
Goodbye
one.
Lenin. The premise is that the boy, his mother goes into a coma, and when she wakes up, they're told not to tell her anything shocking. But while she was in the coma, the Berlin Wall fell.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's what they're told, and so they go through this whole elaborate scheme not to let her know.
Oh my God, that's like almost
Anyway, it's a funny movie. It's
not. Then that's not the one I was thinking of. It's like, for foreign films. I know it's not technically a foreign film. Granted, you could see it and watch it in Finnish, Norwegian, whatever they speak in Swede. But 13th Warrior with Anthony 13th Warrior about the Vikings.
Yeah, but if you're really gonna do it, has you ever seen what was it? It was the one with Max von Sydow as the knight returning from the crusade.
Oh yeah.
It's a really famous one. I forgot what it was called, but that one, it's really slow, but it's interesting watching it. And then of course it later comes back when they're doing the stuff with Bill and Ted, with death and things like that. But it's a recurring. What is the Seventh Seal or something like that?
Yeah. The Seventh Seal. It has a young Denny Moore in it. It has a French cat. No, that's the Last Seal. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. This one is in Swedish, I believe. It's all black and white.
Wow.
It has Max von Sydow where he meets death on his way home.
Oh wow, that'd be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's a slow film, but it's a cool one. I think I'm trying to think of what the other ones are. I mean, a lot of the stuff by Akira Kurosawa, he's probably my favorite director. But even I still need to watch some of his other stuff. Everyone focuses on the samurai stuff, but I was watching.
Well, samurais are just cool. I mean, it's like westerns. You don't watch a movie. Hold on.
Sure.
My senses.
And Zatachi. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Yep, that's it. The Seventh Seal.
Okay, I have to look for that one. But
it was probably on the Criterion. If it's on the Criterion Collection, you should be able to see it on HBO.
The best thing about Western, I mean, in my opinion, Westerns are about gunfights. It would be boring as hell to watch a guy. Well, granted, I could have thrown City Slickers in this month and got away with that.
Well, we both talked about City Slickers. The other one was
A Million Ways to Die with Seth Farland in it.
I haven't seen that one. I have seen the Once Upon a Time in the West. I mean, there's a bunch of great ones.
I actually watched that one. I just got done watching that one the other night because I've been since we've been doing this, I've been someone on a Western kick, and I rewatched Tombstone, saw that one. I can't remember the brothers or the sisters brothers of somebody. There's been a few I watched here recently.
True Grit. I just watched yesterday the 2010 version.
That's the only one I can watch. It's not that I hate John Wayne.
No. This isn't John Wayne. This is the new version.
Right.
Yeah,
But John
yeah.
Wayne did the original one. It's not that I hate John Wayne. I just don't enjoy his movies. I liked him in The Quiet Man, but he wasn't John Wayne in that movie. He actually played like a better version of that himself in that movie. Where, don't get me wrong, I like Matlock. Not Matlock. Is it Matlock?
You're thinking a different person with Matlock.
No, I'm not thinking of Andrew Griffin. I'm thinking it's a Western where he was he had a huge farm. He was kind of the mayor of the city without being a mayor of the city. His wife was gone all the damn time. Who played his wife in Quiet Man? It was a John Wayne country movie, Western, but it was actually fun to watch.
I still like John Wayne. You know, my favorite John Wayne film is still The Green Berets. But
don't know if I've ever seen that one.
Green Berets. Well, it was kind of interesting because it was done during the Vietnam War, and but you know what I heard is that between takes you had to take oxygen. He was so worn out because of his years of smoking and everything.
That's it.
I'm trying to think of some other foreign films, which I've watched a fair number, to be fair. But
granted, while you were in Germany, all you were watching was foreign films.
Well, my favorite was but some of them I would watch that were American films that were dubbed.
Well, still, if you're in Germany, that's a foreign film.
I know. Well, I thought nothing was funnier than them not translating like dough. Like they'd have The Simpsons, and they wouldn't go dough. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a Homer classic thing. That it doesn't require direct translation. There were some films that I've watched. I still enjoy watching some of the old Japanese. I say Japanese, but also the old Chinese kung fu films.
Oh God! Some of the
and the really crazy stuff. Some of the really crazy stuff's up there.
Bruce Lee, Big Boss Man is one of my favorite Bruce Lee films.
You know what? As much as I talk about Bruce Lee, Drunken Master to me is
so... Jackie Chan.
Yes.
Jackie Chan, Drunken Master.
I think it's technically the second one. I think it's technically the second one.
There's a more well-known one, yeah.
Well, that one, apparently he had so many stunt actors, they basically used up almost all of them in Hong Kong, and that they couldn't do it. But most of Jackie Chan stuff, like I love Super Cop.
That was a bit much for me, but I've seen it, yeah.
With Michelle Yeoh?
When he jumps onto that thing, he's in the mall, and it's like towards the end of the movie, and he jumps on it and rides those lights all the way down. And this guy, Chinese, when they make the movies, yeah, they use wires, but what they're willing to let their actors do compared to American movies is like difference between, I mean, it's just like huge. It's a huge Grand Canyon size difference between our safety regulations and their safety regulations. Oh, you broke your foot? Well, can you still walk?
Well, I got kind of mad with the whole thing with when they had Chris, what was his name? Chris Rock? Or no, not Chris Rock. Chris.
Rush Hour.
What's that?
Chris. Rush. You're talking about Rush Hour with Christopher Tucker.
Yeah, I was like, why is he getting more money than Jackie Chan? Jackie Chan is a far better star of this. I love that. But I love, yeah, exactly. But Jackie Chan, you could tell, which always amazed me, is his stuntmen were so well choreographed that when he screwed up, they would grab him before he fell off the train and things. And like, holy crap, that's well trained.
I know this is technically not a foreign film, but there was a movie where Jackie Chan, and I always wondered what Jackie Chan and Jet Li, because in the 90s, it was very much about Jet Li, or not in the 90s, early 2000s, it was about Jet Li. And Jet Li is so damn fast, so fast. Well, and Bruce Lee was fast, though, too. But there was this movie called Forbidden Kingdom, where it's about the story about the legendary Monkey King. And you see Jackie Chan doing the drunken master role, more or less, the drunken master. And Jet Li is playing a monk. And just the fight scene when they're in a temple is absolutely gorgeous in my opinion. The movie's crap, but it's worth watching just for certain. It had the feel of those old fancy Chinese films that you're talking about. It was good.
Oh,
I
well,
might
you haven't seen the ones where they really go for it, where they have the dragons flying around and the demons and all those. But no, I used to watch a lot of the Japanese films from the 50s and 60s because they would talk about the ghosts, and then of course when we were playing Oriental Adventures, that just to help reinforce a lot of it. And then to be fair, my mother lived in Japan for a few years along with my grandparents, so we had a lot of stuff that would show the Oni and a few other things. But I was hilarious. We're talking about that, but the another film I like, which is technically foreign, though it's in 3 different languages. It's in French, Croatian, and English. Was No Man's Land.
I think I've seen that one.
With No Man's Land. It's basically a bunch of Serbs and Bosnians get caught in between the lines, and no one's can bring, and they're trapped there, and you start. Yeah, it's anyone that's read about the war, to me it's hilarious. It's hilarious and very sad at the same time because it's both true. For some things that come in that you're just rolling your eyes around, it's a great film. We used to go watch some of those foreign films, but man, ever since I hate saying it, is the Academy Awards when they do stuff and it's based off of emotion. If I watched The Kite Runner, I wanted to smack. Was it The Kite Runner? It was one of them. No, it was Osama or something, which was about a little girl who. Anyway, so boring. Just want to smack them for that. I'm like, no, we need to. Look, I don't mind watching some foreign films if they're good. Let's go pick some really good ones. But the Chinese tend to do their and I know it's a cultural thing. Their stuff tends to be colonial periods and before. That way they don't criticize the current government. That's one thing I liked about it. I like a lot of the Russian films for certain things. They have a weird sense of humor. Especially nowadays, they're not worried about if people get offended. They're like, nope, we're going to do this.
Russian film. Guardians.
Which one?
Russia. There's a Russian film that is like a variation of Avengers, called The Guardians or something like that, where you had a man bear. But Russia has such a unique relationship with their bears compared to the rest of the world.
Well, the Slavs have that. It's not. What was which I enjoyed watching, was called All Is Quiet Here, or the dawn, All Is Quiet in the Dawn, or something like that, which is which I watched this miniseries on Amazon. Really good. Highly recommend watching it. But this sergeant who has been wounded, and he's not allowed to, and he's like the only eligible man. And in the meantime, he's getting all these units with men, and the women around the village are all interested in him. He's like, "Get away from my men." He says, all they are is a bunch of drunkards. He gets so mad, he finally tells them, all right, get me a unit where I don't have to deal with a bunch of drunks and lowlifes. And so then they bring this anti-artillery unit in full of women. And he's like, oh, he's really mad at him, and he's trying to go through.
If we do a sports month, my first pick will always be Rocky. Don't get me wrong.
Rocky's great. The first one's a great film. So is Creed.
Was a boxer, and Raging Bull, Rocky, and there's like a couple other ones.
Well, even Creed's a great one too. Even though it's a Rocky spinoff kind of thing, but
it's just Sylvester Stallone got boxing. I don't think he ever boxed a day in his life, in real life, other than training and kind of understand the movie. But he got it, and those were. But there's like a couple other ones I really enjoy. A League of Their Own with Tom Hanks.
And Madonna,
Yeah, I know if we did that a sports, Shadow would probably throw in a death ball in there.
You mean rollerball?
Rollerball, yeah.
I like rollerball. I don't mind some of those things. That's like I said. There's a reason that I sometimes want to do the humor about it, which I know Bull Durham's up there too. My parents let me see The Natural. I wanted to shoot myself after seeing that one.
That movie is so long. And it
It's
took
so
forever to get to
slow.
the point. Yeah.
I,
What was
I,
the other one I really like? Major League with Charlie Sheen and that cast.
yeah, I don't mind that. The Longest Yard.
I don't mind doing a couple serious movies while we're talking about in that and whatever genre or whatever we're talking about. But there's got to be at least one or two, at least one. Mine was serious this month. This one, Magnificent Seven, was serious. Mr. Baseball with Tom. I can't think of his name.
Cruise or
No, he was Magnum PI.
Oh, Tom Selleck.
Selleck, yeah, it was really good. I just, there's two fun ones in okay. Blazing Saddles was a comedy. Then I did Wyatt Earp, which was not a comedy. This one was not a comedy.
No, but this one had lighthearted moments, which really broke it
Yeah.
out. It wasn't nearly as serious as Wyatt Earp was. There wasn't a lot of humor.
It's heavy. I have to admit that one was heavy. But
wait till you get to Bone Tomahawk. That one gets really heavy.
Oh, well, Westworld is I mean, I know we're talking about that next week, but that movie is.
It has its humorous parts at the beginning, and then it becomes real dark.
Yeah.
But it sets a good founding. And I don't know. I saw the Westworld series, and I was like,
I was happy with it for the first 2 seasons.
I watched the first 2 seasons, and I was like, the problem was they were trying to lead up towards things, but I don't know. Maybe I've seen
in the third season. In the third season, you see the co-writers, the creators of of Game of Thrones in one of the rooms with one of the dragons they're putting together. So, like, oh god, it's like I get it. Great nod, I get it. That's funny, but no.
Well, no, I was thinking of
we
we're just talking about some of these is like. If we were doing another comedy, and to me, we have to put some comedies in here. Otherwise, it just makes it way too long. But the comedy for, like I still love the Three Amigos. I know.
Martin Shore, Charlie Sheen, and I always forget that the small
Steve
guy.
Martin.
Steve Martin. Yeah, that's right. I'm thinking, yeah.
And I know, like, they're like, well, I don't like him because it's Chevy Chase. I said, yeah, okay, fine. And Chevy Chase, I never thought was that great.
But the other two were great. I'll give you that one. With Martin Sheen, Martin Short. Martin Short. I saw him in Parenthood. I've seen him in a bunch of other movies. But the movie that killed it for me when it comes to him was Roxanne. Because that's based off Serial, and that's one of my favorite operas. And they did that play so wrong.
Wait a minute. That was Steve Martin, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Steve Martin. God, I'm getting tired. But
Martin Short did things like it wasn't Honey Shrunk the Kids. He did Inner Space and a few others.
Inner Space with Dennis Quaid, which is fun. Lucky with Danny Gloveman. Something with the guy from Home Improvement.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Tim Allen. I don't remember what he did with Tim
Allen. It was a Disney film back. It was a 90s Disney film. I don't know, but there's so many good movies out there, and as long as I would love to get back to. I might have to do another show where I'm talking about Dresden Files because I don't think that's really your guys' bag, and I like what we're doing here.
Here's the problem: is really getting that much time to sit down to read it. I still have to go over The Dying Earth. I still need to finish up Bloody Spears. And then I need to go on the next one for my.
You're a dinosaur guy, would be fair to say. And I'm not. I like when I was thinking about doing maybe a month with just dinosaur movies.
You know what though, as we say that, but I wouldn't mind of the. A little bit different. A month of Ray Harryhausen movies.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. That's what Sinbad, Clash of the Titans.
He did that. Jason and the Argonaut. He did.
Those were some of my favorite movies growing up.
What is it? Mysterious Island or Forbidden Island, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
I mean, I love some of those. You know, I won't call the old style. I don't mind watching the old King Kong. You know, from that era. I don't mind watching the Mighty Joe Young, um, which was the whole monkey thing. I just, but yeah, the just like I saw the new Clash of the Titans or whatever, and I'm just like, I don't care about this. And I think
I
part of
like
it,
the pacing of the new one. I actually like the actors didn't drive me crazy in the new one compared to the original one. But it's not the original Clash of Titans. The monsters should all be claymation. I won't disagree with you on that one.
I'm not saying they have to be claymation. I just felt that they spent more time on character development. It felt,
Which I
yeah,
I, I kind of liked, it just
well,
I
I
don't
just
I watch them and I don't mind them, but the old Clash of the Titan movie to me was like a flash in the pan movie.
it was, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, is I like the old Clash of the Titan movie. I'm not saying everything has to be done with that, but when I saw the new one, it felt like they were more interested in doing the special effects than trying to get a story that has special effects. The same way I felt about a lot of George Lucas films afterwards. You know, like I love the original Star Wars. I do. And while he was doing that, but he also tried to make sure he told the story. But later on, the story became secondary and showing what ILM could do became primary. That was the problem that I've had with it. And
I,
I'm not talking about the absolutely new ones. I just meant the ones from the
I love to
2000s.
find a way to throw one of the old Indiana Jones movies into the list. I just don't know where it would fit. Adventures, maybe summer blockbuster movies, summer guilty pleasures. I just don't know where to fit it in.
You know what though? Do we have to? We always say we're doing a theme. I said, okay, I don't mind doing westerns. We have a lot. Westerns a big genre, to be fair. Um,
Oh, we're
for
barely
me,
even scratching the surface with them.
well, that's true. Like I said, I was, I know how Shadow looks at, but sometimes, as much as we talk about Old West, that's one thing I like about the Magnificent Seven is it works great as a one shot for players, or a couple of it's here are your characters, play them. Understand that you're probably not going to survive the end of the adventure. Okay, that's fine. That it works really well for that kind of one shot stuff.
You could do King Kong with the same breath as a one shot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you could, but I'm trying to think of how do you have the players get involved. This one's perfect for a playing group. You get you get six players together. They could all play together. You know that they probably won't make it to the end. That's what I mean by that. Is that
Yeah,
allows
I
you,
get that. I get that.
it's this to me is the perfect one. This is not one that you would do a campaign with, and I think that's the
Right.
problem a lot of times when we look at movies. Is movies are really one shots for the most part, and campaigns are series. Do you want your entire series, and then once the series finale is done, then you're done. Um, I don't.
I have no problem with that. I mean, personally, I'm a fan of black and white films, but to be fair, all movies for me are all black and white.
Well, that is true. All right.
Uh, I
Well,
don't know.
how many black and whites have I done? I've done what, two or three of them.
I couldn't tell you.
Well, I'm trying to think. I did.
Was
I did
this movie black and white?
No, this was color.
Okay, I didn't know. It felt like it could be a black and white movie, so I didn't really think about it. This past week on Gatekeepers, we were talking about how to bring the whole fam. No, was it Gatekeepers? No,
Wasn't
it
it
was.
about the rules
Oh,
lawyers?
it was Max's show, Legion of Myth. We're talking about bringing kids in the hobby, and I made a
I did that.
comment running the labyrinth, the movie The Labyrinth for kids.
They got an RPG for it.
Do they really? I have to look
Yeah.
into that.
They've got the Jim Henson, and I think they have Dark Crystal too. Um,
It's like, yeah. No, go for it.
no, I think part of the problem of when people look at stuff is you got to get everyone on board for it, and can you make this into a campaign? Just like when you talk about the Dresden Files to me are just World of Darkness. By what
Yeah,
I've heard from them.
I can't even argue that as much as I know, which is not very much. But you got Mage Extinction or whatever it's called into World of Darkness. You got your vamps, you got your werewolves. You could fit in. I ran Dresden Files through Pathfinder only because I knew I can I didn't have to break the system
Yeah.
to run it. But it was just I was modern day. I had me and Jade back forever ago came up with how guns would work in 3.5, and I just transferred it over to Pathfinder and just turned it modern day. I got a map of Chicago, and I just
So the original vampire was Chicago by Night.
was it really?
Yeah. And
Um,
they did a few other places, but Chicago was the primary setting for the original um, vampires, because the assumption was Chicago was going to be the ones for the Camarilla, and New York was the one for the Sabbath.
yeah.
And then they did some others. I think they did a few others, but the problem is you needed a large metropolitan area to have enough vampires, and so that just left a few areas. Otherwise, there were barely any.
When I lived in Nashville, I thought about rerunning it, but just using Nashville because Nashville is a major city. It might not be as big as, let's say, Chicago. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can make. I need a major metropolis to run Dresden Files. Nashville would work. I can make that. I can make Chicago work, but well, Chicago is based out of.
Well, I mean, the point for Vampire the Masquerade was the assumption there was one vampire per 100,000 people.
This might be directed at you.
That was back 1990 or so for what the old
Vampire
World of Darkness. It was the 1990s. I think I first saw Vampire come out in 1991, and then around 2000 they had their time of Guiana, which I liked the whole aspect. And the reason I used to get all the monster, I say all the different systems, was because I wanted to have the books set accordingly. I liked the Fae in there. I liked some of the ideas that they had. Some of them I just didn't think worked out well. Some of them I thought, I'm sorry, if I have the ability to change the world, I can't be depressed. I'm not that type. Which to me they try making it into the super dark thing, but I never felt that way. I didn't feel that way.
Chicago by Night. He was asking if Chicago by Night was the 90s.
Yeah, that's it. It was Chicago by Night.
90s was just a weird decade. Everybody bitches about what's going on now. Mike, do you not remember were you alive during the 90s? Was my first question. And do you remember the 90s?
Well, here's the thing about the 1990s is, and this is what I want to come down to it, is while you're getting some of this stuff, we didn't have this big cultural war where everyone was fighting with each other internally. And, yes, okay, you're getting things that were bad, but it was, it was a time of upheaval. But most people remember the 90s very fondly because jobs were very plentiful. Their pay was increasing.
Maybe I was a kid in the 90s, so I didn't really look at it that way. But we got Ruby Ridge, Waco, OJ, the Bobbitt scenario. Then there was just a bunch of shit that happened in the 90s that was like, holy crap.
Well, we did, but if you look at a lot of that was, because I remember, how I want to put this, the news focused internationally. And then when the Berlin Wall fell in, everyone focused internally. And that's what got me about it. That was the thing that bothers me nowadays is we're hearing certain things, but if you actually listen to them, they're all fighting over stuff that isn't that relevant. And this is one of the reasons I like to listen to international news. When I was in Germany, all I heard about was Bosnia because that's what I cared about. That's where my father could be sent, and he was at one point. It was, but the problem was that the news media decided to close all of those places overseas, and then to get up news, they did stuff internally, and then instead of having I want to call real policy decisions, it started just becoming the gotcha. To be fair, they always had that, which was the Sarah Jesse Raphaels and all of that crap. But if you look at the cartoons were great. It was a time of, how would I want to put this?
Oh yeah, Batman animated series, Spider-Man, X-Men. Just those were my three big ones.
The Tick, Sam Max, Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs. I mean, the Batman, the animated series, the one that they had with Flash and Superman. Those were all well written.
What I liked about the original Batman cartoon animated series was no one had. Okay, they said to me they said in the right decade. It felt like it was in the 1930s, 40s, 20s era, especially with the cars and whatnot. And there was no crossovers. I mean, yeah, people had. I mean, you had Freeze, and you had a few people that had powers, but they weren't real over the top superpowers like you get with the other comic book characters.
There was a
And
few crossovers between them, but
yeah,
um,
but that was like 98 when that happened. I think 98. Anyways, we've been at this for about 2 hours, and I love talking to Omen, but I need to get some food. Those bastards were talking about Mexican food, and I got leftover Chinese, so that's about as close as I'm going to get tonight. Rice is rice, right? Anyways, uh,
I have. Well, just so you feel even worse, is I had tacos yesterday when I went to Austin. Um,
I have ribs marinating right now.
so
I'm
that's
going to slow cook them, and I don't know what I'm going to do with the meat afterwards. I just know I want to prep it for whatever I decide.
Well, you know what you do is if you really slow cook it and it's fall off the bone, you just
Yeah.
strip it, and boy, you got that shredded beef, and
Oh,
man, you
yeah.
use that for anything you want. Those make great sandwiches. You put them on like a sloppy Joe for a hamburger, and oh yeah.
I might get some. I don't like corn tortillas, but I like flour ones.
Yeah.
I might get some lime, some cilantro, and go that direction with some of it.
That sounds like a good way.
Anyways, I am glad that you're able to make it this week. I am sorry about last week. We had a storm that came through, and okay, really quick. Saturday night, I was having issues sleeping, so I ate 2 edibles. I learned
Okay.
that never 2 edibles. You always just eat one. Depends on your, how
Yeah,
much
yeah.
you can take. So I'm gone. I'm just stoned out my gore. Lightning storm hits. A lightning hits an old oak tree that's like across the street from me. So my apartment lights up like it's daytime, and it starts shaking. I was watching a movie about the nuclear fallout. So I'm stoned. I get waked up at 3 o'clock in the morning. My apartment is bright as hell, and my apartment's shaking. And I'm thinking, oh no, somebody, Russia finally did it. They dropped a nuke. Why, So I'm like, that's. Then when I woke up and finally woke up the next day, I'm like, nothing in my house is working. I mean, TV was power didn't come on until Monday.
Well, that's terrible because where you are, it's not cold enough to freeze everything. But you're right. It's for the refrigerator. You probably lost all your food in there.
I did not open it.
Okay.
I did not open it. I went over to my ex-wife's house who still had power. I bought groceries for that night.
Okay.
Which was basically ramen sandwich making stuff, and I was just happy with that. Go back to my college days, I guess. Actually, I ate better in college. But we will have to do just a sit and chill. That's actually not a bad way to put it. Sometime this week and just do a catch up because you were busy the week before. Last week was just shot all the way around for me last week, and we need to catch up when we're not talking about movies. We could talk about food.
Yeah, that's right. All right, gonna stop the live stream here.
Yeah. Well, everybody out there, I hope you guys. Thanks for joining us tonight, Six Nations. Come check us out on Gatekeepers. We'll be talking about something. Thursday, we'll be talking about something on Table Breakers. Then that's what I got going on. Shadow, are you going to be, finding yourself on anybody else's show this week? Well, yeah, it's Sunday. Yeah, this week. You were hang out with EO Geek. I didn't know.
You mean me or Shadow? Yeah, I thought you said Shadow. Me?
Oh God,
I'm probably
tired.
gonna say
I'm tired. Are you hanging out with anybody this week?
Gonna try hanging out with the old geek because I don't have to travel this week, which is nice. So, been traveling like every week because I'm trying to get work done. So yeah, I think that's my plan, and then I think that's about it. And then of course not this weekend, but the weekend after is the Memorial Day weekend.
Gotcha. Well, this is where I'm going to kill the stream. Like I said, everybody that's watched the show, Six Nation, thanks for chilling out. I will put probably the Discord information in the next following videos we do. And probably make a list for people who want to volunteer movies and see how we could fit them in. Other than that, everybody go tell your mom that you love them. Go tell your grandma that you love them. And if you're married, well, you know what to do. Talk to you later.